Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Oliver Driver. It's my very great pleasure to welcome you all to LATE at the Auckland Museum and to this panel discussion on the theme of water, titled From a Ripple to a Swell. Now, before we begin, can I just ask you all to turn your cell phones off? And I know that you will take from that, or I'll put it on silent or vibrate. But if you can bear with it, it's only an hour. If you could possibly turn it off, because this is being broadcast also on national radio, and while you're silently and secretly getting a message, the listeners at home will be listening to bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. So that would be fantastic. If you could actually turn them physically off, that would be wonderful. Unless, of course, you are a obsessive Twitterer, then perhaps leave them on, because we have the technology for you to Twitter live about this event. If you do want to do that, the hashtag, I'm told, is what you need. I have no idea how to do it, but if you know how to do it, you'll be going, what's the hashtag? And the hashtag is #AMLate. So if you want to tweet away with that hashtag. Right. Well, tonight, while tonight complements the International Aqua Exhibition, which is open now and after the show as well, it's currently flowing through the Auckland Museum. This is also a discussion that everybody in New Zealand and indeed the world should be having on an almost daily basis. This is virtually nothing, with the possible exception of air, more important to us human beings than water. Here in Aotearoa, we're surrounded by water. We get our food from within it. We promote our country, and also some very good vodka, by proclaiming its purity. We relax in it. We exercise in it. We clean with it. We shower in it. We pay more for our houses if we can even catch a glimpse of it. And we are, of course, made mostly of water as well, yet we don't really think about it or talk about it. So tonight we're going to do just that. Water, our waterways, our harbours, and how well we're looking after them, if indeed we're looking after them at all. And I couldn't think of three people I'd rather discuss water with than the three people I have on my left. Our panelists tonight are, on my first left, Professor John Montgomery. He's the Chair of Marine Science at the University of Auckland. He's on the board of Antarctica New Zealand and Director of the Lee Marine Laboratory. John is also currently working with Environment Waikato, the Department of Conservation and Auckland City to reverse the deterioration of the Hauraki Gulf marine environment. Please welcome Professor John Montgomery. Hello, John.
Hello.
It's just a chance to test your microphone subtly.
How's that?
Yeah,
Can you hear me? Yes.
Sounds good. All right, next, Dr. Marjorie van Roon. Marjorie is a New Zealand ecologist, currently holding a senior position in the University of Auckland School of Architecture and Planning. Water has been a central element in Marjorie's career, the focus of which has evolved from marine ecology to coastal planning, then water quality research, integrated management of catchments and harbours, and latterly in water-sensitive urban design, which we'll hear more about later. Please welcome Dr. Marjorie van Roon. How are you, Marjorie? That's not going to help.
Thank you.
It's not going to help us check the mic, is it? And last, but absolutely by no means least, we've got, of course, we have two very, very intelligent, very smart, very clever, very bookish, very academic people here to discuss the ins and the outs of it. I'm the dumb actor on the right-hand side who's just got a voice that can carry. And joining on my opposite side over there, we have a dancer, Dr. Alice Longley. Alice is a lecturer in dance studies at the University of Auckland, but her forthcoming project is entitled Water in the Sustainable City, an art-science collaboration for Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Now, this research will aim to answer the question, how might an arts-science performance collaboration play a role in fostering awareness and understanding of water issues in Auckland City? So you guys are going to tell us the problems, and Alice is going to tell us how we can potentially tell you about them apart from coming to this meeting. Please welcome Dr. Alice Longley. Alice, I'm struggling. I mean, I've directed theatre, and I make a living out of kind of telling stories. I'm struggling to see how you're going to make this interesting and engaging to an audience? Are we going to see dancers being waterways? What's, you know?
Well, we're not going to be trying to dance the hydrological cycle in Britomart.
It would be a good dance, though.
Well, maybe it would. I guess what we're doing is that there's a bunch of artists, there's an architect and Carol Brown is choreographer and I'm a dramaturg working on the project. Also we'll have a film artist and a sound composer. So we'll be doing things like collecting samples of specific areas. We'll be looking at maps and mapping routes. We'll be looking at, we're working with microbiologist Clark Ehlers to look at the cell structures of water. So then we'll gather, and we'll interview people to find out different diverse cultural meanings of water, because we're not just looking at the scientific meanings of water, we're also looking at cultural meanings of water. So then we'll have this broad body of information and we'll start playing with certain things and to actually work quite abstractly. So our main issue, I think, is to have good design, beautiful choreography, to have kind of a spectacular event that people see and they see something new, and then from there the aim is that people's interest will be peaked, and then they'll want to go, we're going to make a mobile architecture, so then people will go to the mobile architecture where there'll be a digital hub to access some of the research, some of the more hard facts, some of the implications of our actions, and then they'll be able to see more specific tools for knowing about what's going on and thinking about potential ways that we can work to prevent further pollution and destruction of our waterways.
Marjorie, are there things that individuals can do? I mean, you say a lot of it is the waterways and the sediment, and is this an issue of farmers? Is there something that I'm doing personally that I can change?
Right, so if we think about the Hauraki Gulf as a whole, there are certain trends that are occurring, some of which are due to farming and some of which are due to urban development. And the farming ones are largely a result of historically the draining of wetlands throughout the Hauraki Plains and the intensification of pastoral development in those areas. More recently, the intensification of dairying in the headwaters of the Hauraki catchment up towards Paeroa and Tirau, and the runoff of particularly nitrogen and sediments into the Firth of Thames. So we have the march of mangroves across the southern Firth of Thames as a result of increasing the suitable habitat for them with this sedimentation. In the urban environment, we have this deposition of not only sediments but heavy metals in particular that are a concern, zinc and copper, in our upper estuaries that by probably 2030 will be a real ecological threat to the functionality of the harbour. And the sorts of things that we can be doing occur in our neighbourhoods, in our backyards, where we need to start changing the way we lay out our lots, our sections, reduce the surface area of our paving and our house roofs, change...
These seem to be like large sort of things. I mean, are we going to be able to do that? I mean, you say, look at how we divide our lots. You're talking about the size of our houses, the size of our land footprint, our quarter acre that we Kiwis are so attached to?
That's right. So slowly we are starting to take on the European habit of building tall, small footprint buildings instead of sprawling, cover the whole lot type houses. If we can get into that mode, we will improve the permeability of the land and keep more of the water up in the headwaters of our catchments instead of it all running into the harbours and taking the contaminants with it.
How does that work? Why is an apartment or a tall dwelling better than a house on a quarter acre?
Well, you can accommodate the same number of households without covering the whole land surface with hard surfaces.
And the hard surfaces are part of it. You need to
The hard surfaces are a big part of the problem because what you're doing is blocking the natural hydrological processes from going on. If you can replace some of your, probably 30–40% of your hard surfaces with vegetation, you're starting to put back some of the natural hydrological processes that have always been present on the land, getting the water back into the atmosphere through the leaves of trees and so forth, and allowing the water to penetrate the ground.
How are you going to do a dance piece on that?
Like, all this information is so important to hear, and it's so relevant to all of us. And yet I think for a lot of people, you can hear this information factually, but for some people, like a poem can capture the feeling or the impact of something, or an image can capture your imagination in maybe a quick space of time, or in a different way. And maybe if people's imaginations and feelings are moved, then it's a way in which the importance of this message can come. I mean, it's not as simple as obviously writing
no, but even if we
poem,
can get
but if we can get the idea of something across in a way that affects your.
Will we still do anything, though? I mean, will we do anything on the individual level, and will we do anything on the governmental level? Because we are, by our nature, humans, and we, as you were saying, John, and it's an interesting point that we find it hard to care about things that are happening in the long term. You know, I mean, because of the way that it's bred into us that we can see immediate danger. That car's heading towards me, somebody's breaking into my house, you know, I'm running out of money. Those personal things or those things that are an immediate, and I am, those things that are immediately threatening to us, but a long-term threat, climate change, the degradation of our waterways, those sorts of things, we're not as able to kind of, I guess, put it into some sort of reference where I need to act now.
So it's about critical mass, and that thing about a tipping point, where you have a large number of people starting to be a little bit more aware, and then it's like an idea is like a virus, and then if enough of us can get infected by awareness, then maybe a shift happens. I'm not sure.
We have a lot of difficulties around political short-termness as well, in terms of implementing what is really strategic planning. It's long-term planning for bodies of water like the Hauraki Gulf, and the things that we need to do, not only that are important in terms of a time span, because the changes are very slow, but also integrating all of the councils, in particular, that have an influence on a big water body like the Hauraki Gulf, and making them work together in a way that makes the natural unit, which is the Hauraki Gulf and all of its catchment, all of the land that drains into it, operate as one system.
How are the government and the councils dealing with it? Well, let's talk about the government for a little bit. I mean, I don't know how many people saw John Key on Hard Talk, where they actually had a go at him about, look, you use this 100% pure campaign, this is what you're talking about, but when we look at it, your rivers and your lakes, and really and he was just, I mean, he didn't deal with it brilliantly, but it was that he did pretty well. But I think, but how are they? Do they know it's a problem? I mean, do they know that they have to be doing something about this? Are they working hard towards a solution?
I think in the situation for the Hauraki Gulf, yes. I mean, I think we're starting to get a better handle on the parameters that are important, and tracking those, showing the continuing decline of those. And I'd just also like to inject into the conversation that there's an upside here too. I mean, we've got some really good things that we can be proud of with respect to the Hauraki Gulf. I mean, the home of marine reserves. So Lee sits on the world's first marine reserve, and it was created actually perhaps for the wrong reasons, but by staff of the university, and it's been an enormous success.
And are they just not, I mean, what do you want them to do? What do you, if you could suddenly, wave a magic wand and make Len Brown and the rest of them think exactly what you think, what would you be wanting them to, in a practical manner, do? Specifically about water in the Gulf.
The difficulties we have in the implementation of many of the techniques that we would like to apply in the headwaters of our catchments are a result of the inertia in institutional change and the habits that we all have. We as New Zealanders have these habits of wanting to live in low density, by world standards, low density residential environments. We all want our backyards. If we could put the same number of houses on our developments as we have always done, but arrange them differently, arrange the Lego blocks differently on the piece of land, so that we've got large open spaces that we can revegetate and keep our streams in a natural condition instead of putting them into pipes, we'd be going a long way towards making sure that the Hauraki Gulf doesn't deteriorate.
So you'd like to see legislation which sort of forces that, makes sure that from now on new housing developments or
I think it's a marriage of regulation and education, awareness raising, all sorts of things.
Thank you. I'm actually looking at, can we have some solutions here? Do we need a marine reserve at Lucas Creek, for instance, instead of out on Pakri or wherever it is? You know, I think we need to think about, I want to see actions. Are we just going to let sediments, just the zinc and the copper, just build up ad infinitum? We know we've got a problem, but what actions are going to be taken from that point of view? So is there an opportunity? I hear consistently it's the headwaters. Why aren't we taking action at the headwaters rather than picking up rubbish in the Hauraki Gulf with all these different organisations, the Red Sox, the Watamata Cleanup Trust, that are all taking money? Also, there is a technology, Enviropod technology, that can collect in bags the slip off the road. There is 300 in North Shore City, and not enough, but it actually has a wool base in the bottom, and therefore it does take that oil that comes from the tires and things like that, and it keeps it on the land. And why this hasn't been adopted, I don't know.
Well,
the other thing, sorry, I'm just speaking quite a few issues here, and also what hasn't come up about the mangroves. Quite honestly, if you live in Mission Bay, you can have a swim. If you live on the west side of North Shore City, you can't, because it's completely choked up with mangroves.
I think, Marjorie, you did talk about mangroves earlier.
Yes, there's a lot of issues in there.
Yeah.
If we try and do them in order, perhaps. The first one was, why don't we have a marine reserve in Lucas Creek? There's probably no reason why we couldn't have a marine reserve in Lucas Creek. We have one at Pollen Island, and Pollen Island is subject to everything that comes down the Faux estuary, which is pretty contaminated. There's a certain motivation, if you have a marine reserve, to keep your catchment clean because it has an impact on your marine reserve. So why not? The more marine reserves, the merrier in many respects. Your second question?
Well, she was talking about what are the actions that we're doing and what are the solutions that we're doing, but I think you've already been talking to those to a certain extent.
Well, certainly the suburban changes that we've been trying to make through the Low Impact Urban Design Program are exactly targeted at those headwaters.
Is that going to happen in time, that sort of governmental policy? I mean, even if we get governmental policy and council policy that says we have to paint our roofs, that we have to, that we have to build up and something, is it enough?
We certainly hope that it's going to occur with time. It's a race against time. Is the contamination in our harbour going to arrive before we get our act together and change our habits?
And John, what's your feelings on that? Because you're studying the harbour, you know what's the harbour like at the moment? How long have we got? How important is it that we actually go forward and our government does this?
So, I mean, one of the problems from a biological point of view is that we can measure the level of contaminants, but we're still in the dark in many respects in what the biological impacts of those are. We know what the lethal effects are, but it's the sublethal effects, as Marjorie was referring to before, that if the contaminants are blocking the olfactory system of some of the fish, which is affecting their migration, those are quite subtle effects, and we really need to know more about what those sublethal effects are so that we can be setting levels that are biologically realistic rather than levels that are completely toxic.
And because things could be changing already that we're not even aware of in the smallest ways, and because of the way that the ocean works and the environment works, even if it happens to the smallest part of that ocean or the smallest creature within it, that's going to impact on all of the creatures that feed on that and live within it and all that sort of side of it as well, isn't it?
And that's why I think it's valuable to be monitoring your freshwater streams before they actually get into the harbour. And you can use those streams and the healthiness of those streams as a protection for what's further downstream.
Unfortunately, we've come to the end. We can't expect you to provide all the answers and solutions here, but thank you for the discussion. Please join me in thanking my guests for tonight, Professor John Montgomery, Dr. Marjorie Van Rooyen, Dr. Alice Longley.